Hi everyone and welcome back to a brand new episode. My name is Marcus and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at American Airlines. If you're new to this channel, welcome. What we do here is that we study and analyze stocks. We go through the fundamentals and the technical analysis of a stock, but we also talk about finance and investing. And if you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Guys, I truly hope you will enjoy this episode, and please give me a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you. Now, let's get started. As I mentioned, we're going to take a look at American Airlines, and they are traded on the NASDAQ, and they are in the transportation and energy sector. If we go down to the screen, we can tell that their market capitalization is at $10.8 billion. Now, their revenue is at $24.5 billion, and we can see here that the revenue is bigger than the market capitalization, and that is a red flag. We don't have any PE data, but normally I like to take a look at companies with a PE ratio of 20 or below. But this time we don't have any data. Now, the profit margin is at negative 13%. I like to take a look at companies with a profit margin of 15% or higher. So having negative 13%, that is just no for me. Now, the price to sales ratio is at 0.4. Normally, I like to take a look at companies with a price to sales ratio of maximum 4. So this is within my range. So that is a go. Now, we don't have any price to book value data, but normally I like to take a look at companies with a price to book value of maximum 3. Now, they don't pay out any dividend, which is a shame because I like those dividend income. Now, return on equity, we don't have any data on that, but normally return on equity tells you about a company's ability to create a return on the capital, on the equity, and as for investor, it's critical that you have a company that is able to create a return on the capital that you invest in them. Now, we have a return on assets on 6.6%. That is a no for me. Now, the stock is currently traded at $18 per share. If we take a look at the 50-day and the 200-day moving average, we can see that we are trading below the 50-day moving average, but also the 200-day moving average. So this is a signal that tells us that we might see the stock price decline. And if we glance on the chart, we can see that we have been trading in a negative trend channel. But we'll take a closer look at the technical aspect of the stock further down. But let's jump over to the income statement. And what we can see from the income statement is that the total revenue in 2016 landed on $39 billion. And in 2020, we went down to $16.1 billion. But we can tell that we grew a couple of years, which is positive, but the last year, due to pandemic and the economy shutdown, we see that traveling fell and also the revenue affected by that. But overall trend is positive. I like it. Now, gross profit went from $13.9 billion down to negative $0.5 billion. But as we saw earlier, we grew a couple of years, then we fell off. Overall trend is positive. I like it. Now, net income went from $2.6 billion down to a negative $8.9 billion. But as earlier, we fell off a couple of years, gained and grew once again, and then fell. A bit of fluctuation, but overall trend is positive. I like it. Now let's jump over to the balance sheet, and what we can see here is that the current assets versus the current liabilities. Now, we are far from being able to pay off the current liabilities. If the company were to convert their current assets to cash and try to pay off the current liabilities, will still be in debt, which is negative. I want to see a company that is at least able to pay off their current liabilities. Now, the current assets grew from $10.3 billion up to billion, but we fell off a couple of years, then we turned back to a greater number, but overall trend is negative, so I don't like that at all. Total liabilities, $77.3 billion, and we grew from 47.5 up to 77, and we can tell that we grew a couple of years, a huge development over here. Then we reduced the debt, but overall trend, it's a fluctuation, but I want to see the company reducing their total liabilities, so this is a negative. Now the outstanding shares went from 507 million shares up to 621, and we did stock buyback a couple of years, then we increased due to the pandemic. We issued more shares, but overall trend, I see that they're doing a lot of buybacks, which is positive. I like it. Basically, what it tells you, when you see a company issuing more shares, that means that your share of the company is decreasing. And a lot of investors either skip this part or doesn't know about it, because they'll be looking at the balance sheet and go, well, the company has a strong assets and the debt is not growing that much, which is great. But on the other hand, we can see that they are issuing a lot of shares, and this is a way for a company to bring in more capital without taking on more debt. So be careful here and be aware that when you see a company issuing more shares, that means your share is being diluted, your share of the company is decreasing. But overall trend here, we're seeing that they're doing buyback, which is positive, but just the last year, 2020, due to pandemic, they issued more shares. So it's understandable. So that's why I gave them a plus. Now let's jump over to the cash flow. And what we are interested in here is that the operating cash flow versus the capital expenditure. And we can see we went from $6.5 billion down to negative $6.5 billion. And we can see that the operating cash flow decreased a couple of years. So this is a negative trend. I want to see them having a positive development. So this is a negative. Now the capital expenditure went from $5.7 billion, grew at 1 year. Then we start doing lower and lower numbers. So this is negative. I want to see them continue to invest in the company, become more efficient. So that is negative. Now it's a huge difference here between the operating cash flow and the capital expenditure. This is just negative. I don't like this at all. Now let's jump over to the key figures, and what we can see here is that the earnings per share went from $5 per share down to negative $14 per share. It has been doing lower number, a bit of fluctuation, but overall trend is, I don't like it at all. So this is negative. Now the revenue per share went from $77 per share down to $25.8 per share. We grew a couple of years, which is great. I like it, but we fell off just 1 year. But overall trend is positive, therefore a plus. I like that. Equity per share went from $7.4 per share down to negative $11 per share, and we grew 1 year, but after that we have doing lower and lower numbers. I don't like that at all. So that is a minus. Now dividend, they used to pay out a dividend of 44 cents per share, and we went down to 42, then 40. So we've been fluctuating between 40 and 44 dollars per cents per share, and then the last year they pay out $7 per share. I like dividend income, so that is a plus. I like it. Now the dividend share went from 8% up to 15% and then 13.10, so a bit of fluctuation from 8 to 15%. But I like this because I want a company that pays out less than 60%, because I want a portion of those capital to remain in the business for investments. So I like this. Now gross margin went from 35% down to negative 27%, and when been a bit of fluctuation here, we've been moving around 35, 37. So that is a small improvement. So that is a plus, but the last year, negative 27%. Imagine selling something for $1, but you still do a loss of 27%, and you still have your operating cost to pay to cover. So this is negative. I don't like it at all, but overall performance has been positive. They're doing better and better. So we have to compare this number across the industry and see, is this normal, or is it just American Airlines not performing that well? Operating margin went from 10.5% down to negative 71%, and we have been doing lower and lower numbers, a bit of fluctuation, but overall trend is negative. So this is a minus. I don't like this at all. The company needs to find ways to become more efficient. Now, profit margin went from 6.5% down to negative 55%, and been doing a lower and lower number every year, a bit of fluctuation, but the trend is negative. I don't like this at all. Now, return on equity went from 68% up to 129%, and a bit of fluctuation. We fell off 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, so a bit of fluctuation. This is negative. I don't like this at all, even though we did a great number the last year, but I want to see a stability, a clear trend. But here we fell off a couple of years and then did a 1 year number. So we have to ask ourselves, is this sustainable? So return on equity tells you as an investor about the company's ability to create a return on the equity. Are they able to create a return on the capital you're about to invest in them? You have to ask yourself that. So that is a negative. Return on assets went from 5% down to negative 14%, and we fell off a couple of years, and then did a bit of fluctuation, but overall trend is negative. I don't like this at all. So that is minus. Now, solidity went from 7% down to a negative 11%. We improved 1 year, but overall years has been negative. That is a minus. I don't like this at all. Solidity tells you about the company's financial strength for the long term. Now, balance sheet, we went from 0.3 down to 0.2. I've been doing lower number every year. I don't like this at all. That's negative. Balance sheet liquidity, same thing as solidity, but here it looks at the company's financial strength for the short term. So that is negative. Debt ratio went from 12.5 down to negative 11.2, and been doing lower number. I like this. So this is a plus. Basically, the last year when they had negative 11, that means that the company has 11 times more equity than debt in the company, which is a plus. I like this. So guys, we have gone through the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow, the key figures, and now over to the key feature of our software, and that is our pillars. Basically, what the pillar does is that it gives you a simplified, holistic overview about the company's performance. So if we glance on the screen, where we can see that the PE ratio have been greater than 20, which is negative. They don't pay out any dividends, which is negative. They used to pay, the dividend payout share was less than 60%. That is a plus. Dividend decreased over the past 5 years. That is negative. Numbers of outstanding shares have increased, which is negative. And the profitability revenue decreased over the past 5 years, negative. Profit margin below 15%, negative. Profit decreased over the past 5 years, negative. Current assets lower than current liabilities, negative. Solidity decreased over the past 5 years, negative. Balance sheet liquidity decreased over the past 5 years, negative. Debt equity ratio decreased over the past 5 years, that is positive. And the total liabilities grew over the past 5 years. That is negative. Guys, as you can tell, it gives you a simplified, holistic overview of the company's performance. And you can have this software alongside everything we've gone through for only $10 per month. And also you get access to the chat discussion forum where you'll be able to chat with me along with other members. So if you want to dig through the numbers, you can dig through the numbers or have the software do the heavy lifting for you. So jump over to commerce.sc and get your copy of the software. Thank you. Now let's jump over to the technical aspect of the stock. So here we have the chart. Let me just begin with to lay down the resistance line, something like this. And let me change the color to red. Let me change it like something like that. Something like that. And let me do one more. Let me see here, the support line, something like that. And let me change the color to green. And let me do one more because we have a support line, something like that. Let me just see here, something like something like that. All right, so we can see right away that we are trading or moving within a negative trend channel, and with the economic situation with inflation and the news about the American Airlines is cutting 80% of its international travel due to delay in Airbus delivery of the 747 planes, but still the company will be compensated, but we don't know how much, if it covers everything, the total loss, but the news, we don't know how it will affect the 2020 development so forth, and going forward, and how long that would delay will be. But also the news that the CEO Doug is stepping down to take on the role as chairman of the board, and his right hand guy will take over. So we'll have to see how the new CEO Robert will operate the business and manage the business. But we have to just give the management team some time. But due to the financial situation with the coronavirus, I believe that we will continue to see the stock price move downwards, something like to continue down the line here, I believe. Let me change that color so we can see that. So I believe we'll continue to move downwards. Looking at my price range, my price target is around $14 per share or $10 per share. That's where I'll be buying, because I believe as soon as the economy is moving forward and going on, and travel starts open up again, I believe we'll see a huge upside in the stock. So therefore I'm positive, but the company still has a lot of challenges, a lot of improvements to take on. For instance, they need to improve their solidity and balance sheet to start reducing their debt. Their profit margin, operating margin needs to improve. But overall, I have a positive future, the positive outlook, I believe so. And what I will do is I'll continue to wait until the stock starts moving down to $14 per share or less or lower. That's where I'll be buying. So I'll be buying down here. When the stock hits those levels, that's where I'll be enter the trade for, and then just hold the stock a couple of years, because when the economy starts moving again, I believe there is a huge upside. So therefore we will see, then I'll be able to earn some dividends, also enjoy the capital gains. So that's how I'll trade the stock. How would you trade the stock? Please let me know in the comment section below, and I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. And please give me a thumbs up, comment, like, subscribe, and thank you once again for watching. Until next time, take care guys. Bye bye.